In the previous segment, we saw that something really amazing was happening to Homo sapiens beginning about 70,000 years ago, and that this something amazing probably had to do with our language, with the way that we talk and think. It is our language that has made us the masters of the world. In this segment, we will begin to examine our language more deeply to see what is so special about it compared to the languages of other animals. So, what is so special about sapiens' language? First of all, it should be emphasized very clearly that it is not the only language in the world, and it is not the first language in the world. Many other kinds of animals, almost all animals basically, have some kind of language. Even insects, like bees and ants, they have a language. They don't talk because they don't have mouth and vocal cords like us, but they talk with one another using chemicals. So even they have a language, and ants and bees can transmit all kinds of information to one another about the whereabouts of food, of flowers, of enemies, and so forth. So it should be very clear that whatever happened 70,000 years ago, it was not the appearance of the first language. Another possibility that sometimes people think about is, okay, there were languages before, but 70,000 years ago appeared the first vocal language. Ants and bees, they speak with the help of chemicals that they exchange between them. 70,000 years ago, sapiens hit upon, or evolution hit for sapiens' sake, upon the wonderful idea of speaking in words with a voice and not with chemicals or gestures or things like this. So this is also incorrect. There have been many vocal languages long before 70,000 years ago, and many animals today have vocal languages which also use sound and voice in order to communicate between different individuals. A remarkable study has been made, for example, about the language of green monkeys. Now, when scholars first began to study green monkeys, they thought that they were just shouting and making noises without any meaning to them. And all the noises that the green monkeys were making to the human ear sounded the same. But what they did is they recorded the different noises that green monkeys make, vocalize, and they analyzed it on a computer, and they saw that there are different patterns to the noises that the green monkeys make. And then they took different recordings of these different patterns and played them back to the monkeys to see how the monkeys react. And in this way they discovered that the green monkeys actually have words or calls with distinct meanings. For example, one word or one call that the green monkeys make, its meaning is careful, there is a lion. The scientists discovered it because when they played back this particular call to the green monkeys, then all the green monkeys who heard it became very frightful and started looking left and right very suspiciously and climbing up a tree because they saw that there is a lion nearby, and one of the monkeys must have seen a lion and made the careful lion call. And when the scholars played to the monkey a different call, all the monkeys, they still reacted in fear, but they looked upwards and started looking for something dangerous up in the sky. And from this, the scientists concluded that this different call, which to a human ear sounds exactly the same, to the monkeys it sounds different and it has a different meaning. Its meaning is careful, there is an eagle. When a green monkey looks up and sees an eagle, he makes this call because green monkeys are pretty small monkeys, so eagles are one of the chief predators and chief dangers that threaten these monkeys. So vocal ability, vocal language is not unique to sapiens. It is also incorrect to say that the sapiens language is the most sophisticated vocally. That, okay, many animals have vocal languages, but our vocal abilities are truly remarkable, and this is what makes us special. The fact is that the vocal abilities of sapiens are indeed quite remarkable, more than the vocal abilities of most other animals, but the top prize, a gold medal for vocal abilities in nature, does not go to sapiens. Whales and elephants, for example, have in some respects much more impressive vocal abilities than sapiens. Whales and elephants can communicate with one another for dozens of kilometers, and in case of whales, even hundreds of kilometers in the ocean with sound waves in very, very intricate patterns which scientists are still unable to understand today. Even more famously, we have parrots. A parrot can say anything Albert Einstein can say. So whatever is the advantage of Albert Einstein over a parrot, it's not in vocal ability. And hence, it's unlikely that the huge advantage of sapiens results simply from a change in vocal ability. It must be something else. What then is so special about our language if it's not the first language or the first vocal language? As usual, in these cases of important questions, there are always several answers. The first answer about what is so special about our language is that our language is amazingly complex in the way that it can transmit information about the world. We can connect a limited number of sounds and signs in order to produce an infinite number of sentences, each with a distinct meaning. It's not the number of sounds that we make that is important, but it's our ability to take a limited number of sounds and connect them into all kinds of sentences, like the ones I'm using now, each sentence with a different meaning. Thanks to this ability, sapiens can store and communicate a prodigious amount of information about the surrounding world. Again, if we return to the green monkeys, so the green monkeys, they can tell one another, careful, there is a lion nearby. But that's about it. In contrast, a sapiens, let's say that a sapiens woman left the band and went to the river to get some water to drink. And near the river, she saw a big lion, big scary lion, tracking down a herd of bison. She can now run back to the band and say not only, careful, there is a lion, like the green monkey. She can say, look fellows, I went to the river and I saw there a lion tracking down a herd of bison. And then all the different members of the band, they can put their heads together and discuss what to do. Maybe we should just stay away. And somebody says, no, it's better to chase away the lion because we are hungry and hunt the bison ourselves. And if he or she convinces everybody, then they can put their heads together and discuss all kinds of strategies about how to do it. So this is the first theory about what makes our language so unique and special. Our language enables us to share a lot of information about the world, much more than the language of green monkeys. We can talk about rivers and lions and bison and make all kinds of plans, and this is what makes us so powerful. A second theory agrees that the unique language of sapiens evolved as a means of sharing information about the world, but this second theory emphasizes that the most important information that humans in general and sapiens in particular needed to be conveyed to one another is not information about rivers and lions and bison, it's information about humans themselves. In a nutshell, the second theory argues that our unique sapiens language has evolved so that we could gossip. We tend to think about gossiping as a bad habit and as a relatively unimportant habit. But the fact is that gossip is extremely important and an extremely beneficial ability. Without gossip, it is very hard to live in a large group, and it is even harder to cooperate effectively with other people. What we need to appreciate is that Homo sapiens is not a loner. Homo sapiens is a social animal. Social cooperation is our key for survival and reproduction. If you want to stay alive and to have children, it is not enough for you or for individual men and women in general just to know what's happening to lions and bison. It's much more important for you to know what is happening in your band. Who in your band hates whom? Who is sleeping with whom? Who is cheating on whom? Who is an honest person? Who is an unreliable person? For example, if you go hunting and a lion starts chasing you, you want to know who in your band is likely to come to your assistance and who is likely to run away. You wouldn't like going hunting with people who run away at the first sign of danger and don't stay there to help you. Similarly, if two people in your band start fighting the one with the other, and both of them ask for your assistance, you have to decide who of them you're going to help. Let's say that one of them is strong and nice, and the other one is weak and selfish and not a very nice guy, but the other, the weak and selfish one, he is also very well connected to the most influential people in the band. For example, let's say that his mother is the most important, dominant person in the band. So you have to make your calculations who to help in this situation, or perhaps help nobody and just walk away. And in order to reach a decision who to help, you need to know not only their individual character, but you also need to know how they relate to one another. For instance, in this story, the fact that the weaker and the less nice individual, he is also the son of the most powerful woman in the band, and you don't want to make her angry. So in order to function in society, you need to have a staggering amount of information about your fellow band members. The amount of information that you need to obtain and to store in order to keep track of all the relationship in the band is really huge. Scientists have calculated it mathematically. In a band of 50 people, there are about 1,225 one-on-one relationships. So if you want to keep track of everybody in your band, who likes whom, who hates whom, who had a fight with whom, you have to keep a track record of 1,225 different relationships. And if you take into account that there are more complex relationships between 3 persons, 4 persons, then you now start to appreciate how much information we need in order to function well within even relatively small societies of just 50 people. Now, we know from observing other apes, other animals, other apes like chimpanzees and baboons and gorillas, that they all show a very keen interest in social information, but they have a trouble gossiping effectively. Because of the limitation of their language, 2 chimpanzees, they can't gossip effectively. If I'm a chimpanzee and I see 2 best friends who start fighting, then I know, these 2 best friends, they are now fighting. Now if I get in trouble with the one, the other not necessarily would come to his assistance. But if I haven't seen it with my own eyes, nobody else can come and tell me what happened, because we can't gossip, we chimpanzees. It's estimated that Neanderthals and Homo sapiens 100,000 years ago, before the cognitive revolution, they too were very keenly interested in social information about band members, but because of the limitations of their language, they could not talk behind each other's backs. They could not gossip. And this made it pretty difficult for them to live in large bands and to cooperate effectively with a large number of strangers, not strangers, with a large numbers of other individuals. The new sapiens language that began to appear, say, around 70,000 years ago, it enabled sapiens to start gossiping for hours upon hours on end to exchange information about what other people were doing and thinking and so forth. This gave us sapiens reliable information about other people in our society, who we can trust, who we can't trust, who likes us, who doesn't like us. And this meant that we could start living in larger and larger bands, and that we could start develop tighter and more sophisticated ways of cooperating with other people because we could gain much more information about them. Now, this theory of language as mainly a means for gossip may sound to some of you like a joke, but there are numerous studies in all kinds of fields, psychology, sociology, even economics and biology, that support this idea. Even today, this is something that sociologists, for example, have studied deeply. What do people talk about today in the 21st century? So, even today, the majority of human communication in the world is gossip. Emails, phone calls, newspaper columns, TV shows, most of the information that you get is gossip, not necessarily about people you know, but about all kinds of leaders and film stars and so forth. This is what most people do. Much of their day, they exchange information about other people. And this is the thing that people love most to talk about. From all the conversation topics in the world, the topic which is of greatest interest to people in all cultures, Americans and Chinese and Israelis and Palestinians, they all like to gossip. Even professionals, for instance, what do you think that history professors do when they meet for lunch? So on some rare occasions, they speak about the causes of the First World War, what led to the First World War. But most of the time, when two professional historians meet for lunch, they gossip. They talk about the professors who found her husband cheating on her with his secretary. Or they talk about the terrible fight that erupted between the dean and the head of the university. Or they talk about one of their colleagues who embezzled his research funds in order to buy a Lexus. This is the kind of things that historians usually talk about in their lunch breaks, and also nuclear physicists and so forth. It's, by the way, gossip, as you saw from these examples that I gave, gossip usually focuses on wrongdoings, on people breaking the norms, doing what they shouldn't do. Because this is the main function of gossip. It serves as a kind of police. And it served this job tens of thousands of years ago when there was no police. So gossip was the police and the court. People talked about other people in the band breaking the norms of doing what they shouldn't do in order to beware of them, of people who are not behaving properly. And people also were frightened of breaking the rules, of doing what they shouldn't do, for fear that others will gossip about them, and then nobody would like to be their friends and to cooperate with them. And 50,000 years ago, if nobody wanted to be your friend, and if nobody wanted to cooperate with you, you were as good as dead. Both the gossip theory and the there is a lion near the river theory are valid. There is much truth in them. But together, they give us only part of the answer to the question, to the big question of what is so special about our language and about our species. There is, in fact, something even more remarkable about sapiens language than the ability to transmit information about lions or to gossip about people. The next segment of this lesson will be devoted to discussing this truly remarkable feature of our language.